This is the agenda for tonight's training to help us prepare for the summer SEC meeting. I'll share some information about the SEC in general, talk about logistics, what the body will be voting on, and then we'll have some opportunity for Q&A at the end. I think we'll be done on time. In the meantime, if you have questions, you can type them in the chat, and I'll try to peek at it from time to time, and I will keep an eye on it as well. So, jumping in to the SEC meeting, we have a lot of first-time members. I saw typing in the chat, so congratulations for being elected as a state executive committee member. Thank you for serving your community in that capacity. Of course, it takes all of us to move North Carolina forward, so thank you for being a part of that and being engaged in the work. The SEC, the State Executive Committee, this is the governing body for the state Democratic Party. So it sets the direction for the state party, which is all about how we organize for victory on election day. And of course, the SEC members are elected, you were elected at county conventions, and that happens in the odd number years. So as an SEC member, you are signed up for a 2-year term. Quick snapshot of what the party's organizing structure looks like. You might have seen this before. We have 2,700 precincts across the state. That is the smallest unit of organization. And this diagram isn't intended to show a hierarchy, more to show scale. So there are tons of precincts. The precincts all roll up under a county. Of course, we have 100 counties in North Carolina, and all 100 counties then roll up into a congressional district. We have 14 congressional districts across the state. And the alphabet soup of Democratic Party leadership at the national level includes the Democratic National Committee, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the Democratic Governors Association. Those are some of the acronyms that you are most likely to hear. There's some other organizations. Those are kind of the big ones. And then our SEC members are kind of along the side here. There are about 600. The number can change a little bit. It's a little bit fluid, but our state executive committee members come from each of those categories. For our state party, this is our team of officers. They were elected at the winter SEC meeting this past February. They are all serving at least their second consecutive term. I think Melvin's been around a bit longer than that. But our chair is Anderson Clayton, Jonah Garson, first vice chair. Dr. Kimberly Hardy is our second vice chair. Elijah King, third vice chair. Melvin Williams is the party's secretary, and Denise Cheney is the party's treasurer. That is an appointed position, not an elected position. And for those of you who are county party leaders, especially if you've recently attended the trainings that I've done for county party leaders, where we talked about first, second, and third vice chairs, at the county level, first, second, and third vice chairs have specific responsibilities. It's not as specific at the statewide level. Everything I'm going to share tonight and everything that happens at the SEC meeting is really driven by our plan of organization. Nye just dropped the link for that in the chat. Thank you, Nye. This is the formal guiding document for how our party operates. I have a orange arrow pointing to the date. The most recent version is from February 22nd of this year. Pages 45 to 55 cover state organization, including the SEC. The way I recommend you use this is I have it bookmarked, and if I ever have a question about something, I will search for key terms in the document. I'm not going to read this whole slide, but I want you to have it. The State Executive Committee, those 600-ish people, include our elected officers. Every county chair is an SEC member, every district chair as well. Then about 450 members are elected at the county level. And then there's an assortment of other people who are also part of the SEC. Within the state executive committee, there is a smaller body that's called the State Executive Council, and that's about 40, maybe 50 of these people are in that smaller body, and they have additional responsibilities. I'm glad that you have joined us. Thank you for serving as the SEC. And the way we talk about SEC membership is it's really ideally not an honorary role. Hopefully, our SEC members are informed, engaged, active, whether you are a monthly donor, you're hosting events or fundraisers, you're involved in direct voter contact and volunteer recruitment. All of that work needs done, and of course, it takes all of us to get it done and to organize for victory. SEC members are required, per the plan of organization, to attend 2 meetings per year. There's a winter meeting and a summer meeting. SEC members, I mentioned, have a 2-year term. So if you miss more than one meeting in that 2-year term, you shall be removed from membership, is how it's worded in the plan of organization. If there's any time you can't attend, you're here at this training tonight, so I'm guessing you can attend this Saturday. But if there's ever a time you can't attend, send a proxy, and that absence won't count against you. In addition to attending those SEC meetings twice a year, you should also be participating in your county executive committee. In a lot of counties, that's a monthly meeting. They might have committees and projects that you can pitch in on. Okay, that was some basic information, an introduction to SEC membership and to the summer SEC meeting. What questions do you have before I move on and start talking about logistics? If you want to type in the chat or raise your Zoom hand. Chris, I see your hand.
Yeah, if you end up attending through a Zoom link, is that count as attendance?
Absolutely. Yep.
So I have a second. I'm registered and was planning to be there personally, but if I end up not being able to make it, can I change it to a link up until the day, or do I have to do that?
So this is a good question. If the general advice would be, um, it's better to sign up for the Zoom event. It's easier to then at the last minute change it to being in person. But the way the mechanics of a Zoom event works, you need to register for that. I've got a slide coming up by midnight tonight because as staff organizing the event, we need time to vet and make sure appropriate people have signed up so that you can get the link and vote. Nye, did I miss anything?
No, I was going to echo the same sentiment. If you would like the Zoom link to attend virtually, please register for the meeting by midnight tonight. You can always register in person the day of, but we have to disseminate the Zoom links before the meeting.
Thanks. So if you're on the fence on if you're going to be in person or on Zoom, sign up for the Zoom. You can pop in person. You cannot pop into the Zoom. You won't be able to vote. Okay, I had a private message about how the SEC members are allocated to the counties. There's a formula and it's done proportional. There are some other trainings where I've gone into a bit more detail on that, but it is a proportional allocation. Beth has a question in the chat. I cannot speak at the meeting if I attend versus Zoom. That is not correct, Beth. And We're actually really proud that we offer a fully hybrid meeting, Zoom and in person. And in fact, this is a good transition for me to start talking about logistics, because we do have a fully hybrid meeting. It's important to us from an equity and an accessibility standpoint. So you can absolutely talk from the Zoom. So going into the logistics. The meeting is, of course, this Saturday, and it will be in person or on Zoom. If you are attending in person, it's going to be at the Asheville Buncombe. Oh, let me move to the next slide. There we go. Asheville Buncombe Technical Community College, AB Tech. We're really excited to be in the western part of the state, which I think the state party hasn't been in for a while. We will be at the Ferguson Auditorium. If you're coming in person, it's important to write down this address or copy it from the emails that Nye has sent, 19 Tech Drive. And let me move ahead real quick. This is what it looks like at AB Tech. We were there a week or two ago to check it out. I personally had just a little bit of confusion. I wasn't quite sure I was in the right place. I was. Saturday, there will be 100, 200 people there, so it should be more obvious. But you can see there is a sign here. There's a Ferguson building and there's a Ferguson auditorium. We will be in the Ferguson Auditorium. So if you are using GPS to help you navigate there, put 19 Tech Drive in the GPS. That is what is going to get you to the parking lot right outside the building. When it comes to lunch, um, Nye has a form, and maybe Nye, you could drop the link in the chat. If you would like to order lunch from Panera, you can, of course, go offsite for lunch. There's going to be 1 hour for lunch, so that might not be a lot of time. You can pack in. We will also have one food truck on site called Munchies that you can get lunch from. I would tell you that based on the past few meetings, the lowest stress, fastest option for you is going to be to pre-order a lunch from Panera, because it is kind of a short lunch break. And then also, if you're going to be in person, bring your devices and chargers. Really, you probably just need your phone and need to have it charged up. You don't generally need a laptop, but if, for example, you use your phone to GPS navigate there and your battery's drained by the time you show up, you might be bummed out. So bring a power cable in case you need to charge up. Okay, I showed you the building. Let's talk about Zoom just a little bit. For people who are attending via Zoom, the deadline for that is tonight. It's 11:59 tonight. So please, if you think you're going to attend on Zoom and you haven't pre-registered, you need to do that today. Otherwise, you will not be able to vote on any of the business of the day. It takes us a couple of days to do all of the mechanics to make this fully hybrid meeting work. Nye will be sending the Zoom registration, the Zoom link to join the meeting. That will probably be sent out on Friday, either from Nye, it might come from Sarah O'Brien. We will send that on Friday to speed up the registration process. So on the back end, we will have 5 or 6 staff members behind the scenes in the Zoom checking that the people in the Zoom waiting room are credentialed SEC members. What will speed that up is for you to change your Zoom name to match the name on your voter registration. That will help things go a little smoother for you. I see that Nye dropped the link in the chat for the registration form. If you are sending a proxy, it's the same form. Keep this in mind for future events if you ever need to send a proxy. It is the same form. You and the proxy would both complete it. There's a spot for you to indicate I'm sending a proxy and here's their name. And then your proxy will fill it out and say, I am proxying for so-and-so. One last thing here on registration, particularly if you're a county party leader or a district chair, there is a resource where you can look to see who from your county has signed up. It's a good idea to check. So you can go look at the link I just dropped in the chat, sort it for your county, and see who might be missing and if you could help prompt them to make sure that they're registered. That will help Saturday go smoother. So before the Saturday big show, there are some social events the evening before. Again, in person or on Zoom options. If you live out west or if you're traveling out west for this meeting, there will be a pre-event social at Highland Brewing Company. And I think, Nye, is that the registration link? No, Nye's going to drop the links for these two events so that you can RSVP. The in-person event is being hosted by the Buncombe Dems and also being sponsored by Cherokee, Macon, Madison, Mitchell, Transylvania Dems, and the NC14 Democrats. The Zoom social is Friday at 7 o'clock, and that is being hosted by the Disability Caucus, and there's also a registration form for that. When it comes to high-level agenda, particularly here in the morning, if you are attending in person, from 8 to 9 o'clock will be check-in, registration. There will be some coffee, very minimal little breakfast snacks, and there will be tabling. So organizations might have a table set up to share information, particularly some of our affiliated organizations and caucuses. Lunch is planned from 12 to 1. Similarly, if you are joining via Zoom, credentialing starts at 8 a.m. The call to order is 9:30 in the morning. If you are attending on Zoom, what I recommend is that you sign in on Zoom as early as you can, get checked in, and then leave your Zoom open, go make an omelet, have your coffee, whatever you need to do. Because with 100, 200 people, I don't know what the current tally is for Zoom attendees, it's a couple hundred people. It takes a while to get everybody credentialed. So the call to order for the meeting is planned for 9:30 in the morning. One other note, if you're joining via Zoom, during the lunch break from 12 to 1, if you're joining on Zoom, again, I really recommend you just kind of mute your computer, turn off the camera, turn off the sound, and walk away. Because if you leave the Zoom and you come back in, you need to be re-credentialed. So give yourself time for that or just leave it open. What is the content on the agenda? And I'm going through the slides here. I'm not able to really keep up on the chat, but I'll pause here in a minute. One thing I want to say about the agenda is that I've labeled it here the tentative agenda. So Nye and those of us on staff for the state party, we help facilitate and organize the meeting, but we are not in charge of the meeting. This meeting is for the SEC members. I'm not an SEC member. Nye's not an SEC member. Like there are a couple people who are, but one reason I'm calling this the tentative agenda is one of the early items to vote on will be for SEC members to vote on if they want this to be the agenda or not. So let me run through this really quickly, each of the sections. I mentioned we're going to gavel in at 9:30 in the morning. There are a few standard pieces of business we're doing in the first chunk. So there's the call to order, a moment of silence, a land acknowledgement, pledge of allegiance, and then um, we should have quorum. If we don't have quorum, which is it 40% nigh of the elected members?
Yes.
So 40% of the 600-ish need to be in attendance for us to conduct business. So the parliamentarian will be keeping an eye on how many people have signed up in person and on Zoom to make sure we have quorum. This will probably take us half an hour, those first 5 items. After that, will be the first opportunity for the members to really vote on something. So this will probably take half an hour. There will be approval of the rules of the day, the rules of how the meeting will be run, approval of the agenda, and approval of the meeting minutes from last March. These three items are usually presented and approved as a consent agenda, is what that's called. So a consent agenda, this is beyond the state party, any large organization usually includes this as a standard practice when they have large meetings. The idea is things that should be standard business, not confrontational, not controversial, just things that need to be done. Let's group them together and vote on them as a package so that we can keep the meeting moving and not have to vote on each item separately. So it's a way to have the meeting run a bit smoother and a bit faster. Um, and the SEC members can make a motion and vote to remove items from the consent agenda and open them up for discussion. So the standard that we have used for the last several meetings, at least, is that if 25% of the members in attendance say, yes, let's remove this from the consent agenda, let's not take that shortcut, let's instead hash it out, that can happen. Okay, assuming the rules of the day, the agenda, and the last meeting's minutes are approved as a consent agenda, then there will be a presentation from the chair and the party officers. So they'll share some updates on what has been going on. Then the piece of business, the meatiest piece of business before lunch, we will start going into the Platforms and Resolution Committee report. This is probably going to start before lunch and then need to continue after lunch, given how much there is to talk about. And I'll share more specifics here in a little bit. This will be an opportunity for the SEC members to vote on what is presented. And then, like I said, lunch is in the middle there. After the Platforms and Resolution Committee, we will go to a presentation on the North Carolina Democratic Party's strategic plan. If you attended the county party leaders training recently, you saw me do like a 6-minute version of presenting that plan. This will be more detailed. After that presentation, we will go into the Auxiliary Organization Charter Renewal Committee report. That was a mouthful. The auxiliary organizations are the clubs within the party. There's a Jewish caucus, a Muslim caucus, an interfaith caucus. There's the Young Dems and College Dems, all those organizations. They need to they need to meet certain requirements every couple of years to be rechartered. Or if a new organization, a new club wants to be formed, they also have certain activities that they need to complete. So this will be an opportunity for the SEC members to vote on approving these organizations. Then the Plan of Organization Review Committee report will be here towards the end of the agenda. The Plan of Organization Review Committee, these are the people who work on making changes to the plan of organization. So they have recommendations. After that, it is announcements and adjournment. I did see for a moment there, somebody asked, like, how long does the meeting go? Very good question, and I can't actually tell you. We have certain business that needs done. And we don't, like Nye and I, we don't control the timing of when the meeting is over. It's really controlled by the SEC members themselves and how much discussion, debate, how many items are voted on. So this is kind of what we are expecting planning wise. We have to be out of the building by 7 p.m. So maybe I shouldn't have even put till 7 p.m. on that slide because we really need to wrap up by 6. But how the day goes is really controlled by the SEC members and how much discussion and debate there is. Now, if you would drop this link in the chat, if you are a new SEC member, um, I do have some materials I can share with you about Robert's Rules of Order. This meeting will follow parliamentary procedure, and the link is a training that was created a few years ago before my time to kind of talk through Robert's Rules of Order. So if you want to brush up on that or take a peek at it, we'll share that training link. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what we're voting on next. But before I do that, I'm going to pause because there's a lot of activity in the chat that I have not kept up with as I was presenting. Now, did things come up in the chat that we should talk about?
Um, The only three questions I think would be helpful for everyone is because we're going to be out west in Asheville, this meeting has been very popular with non-SEC members that are also Democrats. They can attend this meeting. This meeting is open to any registered Democrat in North Carolina. We do encourage them to pre-register with the same pre-registration form. And I just dropped that in the chat one more time, along with the Robert Rules of Order document. There's no difference between an affiliated organization and an auxiliary organization. The
Oh,
terminology changed over the last few years. They used to be called affiliated organization, so you're showing how long you've been an NC Democrat if you called it that. Now they're called affiliated organization. So same thing with caucuses. They're all under the same umbrella. I just like to call them AOs.
thank you. I did also see a chat. Someone was asking for a link to the strategic plan. Oh, Crystal was. I have been sharing that with people. I don't have it at my fingertips. Um, so. If Nye can round it up, otherwise I'm going to make myself a note to include it in the follow-up email tomorrow. If you don't see that, Crystal, I know you'll follow up with me. Let me make a note. Strategic plan in follow-up email. Okay, I see Larry's hand up. Larry, I think you're muted. I'm not hearing anything.
I agree. I can't hear Larry. Larry, if you want to put your message in the chat, we can see your lips moving, but there's no audio.
Sorry, Larry. Okay. Um, while Larry, oh, is your audio? No, Larry's typing. Okay, while Larry's typing, Marcy had a question. Why is the plan of organization after the other items? I think you're referring to the plan of organization review committee, which is there we go. Um, yeah, no particular reason. We have three committees, like, oh, and I just typed in the chat. We have three committees who have reports to give, and we've got a plan to hopefully get through all of them. So, yeah, there's not a particular reason. There's a lot of business to conduct at this meeting. Okay. I'm going to move on. And then as soon as Larry's note pops up, we'll answer that question. Okay, for the agenda, to get a little bit more specific and what the SEC members will be voting on. And Nye will have some links to drop in the chat. And also, all of these resources are available on the website, which, Nye, if you could drop that link as well. I'm not going to go through all of these in super detail, but as a reminder, the rules of the day are one of the things that SEC members will have the opportunity to vote on early. We've got a link to that document that will be presented as part of the initial consent agenda. The meeting minutes from the winter 2025 meeting will also be presented as that consent agenda at the top part of the meeting. Then we get to resolutions. There are three buckets of resolutions. So there are a lot of resolutions. So they start at the precinct level, they're voted on at the county level, district, they make their way up. And then there is a committee of SEC members who works on the resolutions. So this first group here, we're calling reported favorably. So these are 25 resolutions that the resolutions committee worked on, negotiated, discussed, edited. They are bringing forth to vote on at this meeting. So the way this will happen is this will come up, say these 25 items are presented as a package, as a consent agenda. And if the body has, if the SEC members, if the body has no feedback, then you will just do up or down vote on all 25-ish items in the consent agenda. Or you can make a motion to remove an item from the consent agenda, and then the SEC members will vote on if it should be removed from the consent agenda, discussed separately. There's a 25% threshold to remove those items. Again, the consent agenda is kind of a way to speed up the process of the meeting, and if things are not controversial, get that business done quickly. There are items members want to discuss, they'll pull it out. This is one of the things, like if we did each of these 25 items, I'm not an SEC member. If each of these 25 items were presented separately right off the bat, that would take a lot more time than presenting it as a consent agenda and then removing things people want to talk about. Okay, then there are some resolutions that the resolutions committee ran out of time to work on and gain consensus to present to the SEC membership that are time sensitive. So these are 12, 15 items that if they are not voted on this Saturday, the next time that they would come up, they'll no longer be relevant. They'll be moot. So the recommendation will be to also vote on these items. Then there's a group of resolutions that the resolutions committee didn't have time to work on and resolve that don't necessarily have a time element to them. One of the reasons that this consent agenda is used, and one of the reasons we have grouped the resolutions in these three buckets, is because this document is 150 pages long. And there are, I don't know, 100 plus resolutions in here. That was a lot of work for the resolutions committee to try to get through. They didn't get all the way through. So depending on how much time is left in the agenda, some of these items may end up coming up and being voted on. Then the AO chartering and renewal. Again, there's a list here, and I will drop the link. I will include all these links in the follow-up email tomorrow. They are also on the website, so you've got 3 ways to get your hands on them. The AO chartering and renewal will be presented as a package, again, as a consent agenda. And if some of these items, someone can make a motion to remove an item, and then if 25% of the SEC members in attendance agree it should be removed and discussed further, it will be removed. Then we get to the Plan of Organization Review Committee. Again, there's a link with all of these details. It will be presented as a consent agenda with that 25% threshold to remove and discuss. If you have attended an SEC meeting in the past, this last winter's meeting, for example, we voted on a lot of issues. We voted on all of the officers, and we had a very robust method for sending out the ballots, receiving them, tabulating them, validating them. For this summer's meeting, with so many things being presented as a consent agenda, we think that most votes will be in person by voice acclamation. On Zoom, you will thumbs up or thumbs down. We don't think we're going to need ballots, but If we need to tabulate exact votes, we have a Google form ready, which is one of the reasons you want to have an electronic device with you. There are no paper ballots. It will be electronic only, and we will put a QR code up on screen in the Zoom meeting, text, email, things like that. So make sure you do have an electronic device in case we need to vote. Okay. Let me look at the chat. And that was the information I had to present. So let's see. Give me 1 minute, Marcy. I'm scrolling through the comments in the chat. The YouTube video will be public, so anyone can watch that. Jim Beard is saying raised hand does not seem to work. Are you saying in this meeting now? Um, I'm not sure if you're unable to find it or um, maybe if you want to add more context in the chat. Um, okay, someone has to leave early. So it happens. What happens is if too many people have to leave early and we lose quorum, then we can't conduct any more business. One person leaving at 4 o'clock, bummer, but the meeting will carry on. You just won't be able to vote on the issues at hand. But if we lose quorum, then the meeting, we can't vote on any more stuff. Um, all right, let's see. Now I was dropping the links in the chat. Let's see. The resolutions will take a long time. How would we move to amend? So if you want to, the resolutions are pretty much in the front half of the agenda as it is. We're kicking that off before lunch, but if SEC members want to make a motion to amend the agenda, and then get approval, then SEC members can do that. Um, okay, now I answered
I,
that more thoroughly.
I did have one other question,
Okay, let me keep
but
I'm still catching up on the chat. And Larry put his question. Let me see. How long does the meeting last? Yeah, it gets stuck spending an excessive time on the resolutions. Yes. Yeah, there have been working groups for all of these committees. Yeah, a lot of work has gone into all this. Anything you should print out? Nye is emailing the SEC member packets tomorrow. It can be a helpful guide. It can also be a whole lot of pages and dead trees. So if you have a tablet or a Kindle, you can send a PDF to your Kindle email so you can see a document on a Kindle if you don't want to print all the trees, kill all the trees. If you want to print, have at it. Um, let's see, print the agenda, rules of the day. Thank you, Crystal. That's helpful. Take your phone charger with you and be patient. I'm also going to give another shout out, pack a snack. Um, if you are someone who has a medical or a health issue and like needs to manage your blood sugar in particular, like bring a snack, take care of yourself. Um, okay. There will be a very limited number of printed member packets at check-in. I wouldn't necessarily rely on that. Sometimes we run out of those. How do you speak to an item? So Party Chair Anderson Clayton, she will at certain times ask for a motion and she will explain what the rules are. So like if something comes up for a vote, it's usually like three people can comment pro, three can comment anti, and then vote, something like that. Um, oh, the registration form requires a dial-in number. So we're asking for your phone number and your email and your legal name as it shows on your voter registration so that we can make sure you are so we can double check that the right people have credentials to vote. And yeah, you can absolutely use your computer or telephone for the Zoom, whatever you want. Ah, I see somebody with the Kindle. They're taking that advice, which means, Marcy, I've caught up and I'm going to lap you here in a moment. So go ahead, please, Marcy.
Okay, so my question is on, so if we get to the 25% on one of the items that's in the consent agenda and it gets pulled out, what happens to it then? Where does it go? How does it get considered?
I think it depends on the item. You know what, Nye, I'm going to say something. I think some of them go back to the committee and others might be considered in the moment, but Nye, go ahead.
Yes, so in terms of resolutions, if a member makes a motion to pull a resolution from consideration that day, the member will get 1 minute to explain why they would like to pull the motion, and then the state party chair will prompt the members to vote whether or not the resolution stays as a part of the summer SEC's meeting package. If the vote gets over 25% of the body, it is sent back to committee to be brought to the next SEC meeting. Resolutions are eligible. If the motion fails the 25% threshold, it stays on the resolutions package.
Okay, so that's for consideration. What about the consent package? So does 20, 25 or whatever, if somebody says, we don't want that to be part of that consent package, do those then get considered right then?
No,
Does
so
it-
if it's not a part of the consent package, it goes back to committee.
Okay. That, what I've heard from somebody in our precinct, our county is that they're concerned about that. So it just seems like we might have a lot of discussion before we even get to some of these things.
Yes, we are anticipating, like as Christy said at the beginning of the presentation, staff is anticipating there to be a discussion amongst NCC members on what the best course of action is for the rules of the day. Again, we're just here to facilitate the meeting. So if members would like to make changes to the rules of the day or make changes to the consent agenda, they are empowered to do so. But as the rules are written right now, when a resolution is pulled, it gets voted on to be sent back to committee.
Part
Thank
of
you.
that too is that if you've ever been in a meeting where people tried to edit a resolution on the fly with 400 people in attendance, um, that's a little bumpy.
I've been through that many times. Yes,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is
and
bumpy.
it is. And but well, I'll reiterate it again. Nye, me, the staff, we're here to support the SEC members and whatever y'all decide to do. We're getting paid to be there. And I get a free Panera lunch. Okay. I see a question from Denise. There will be Wi-Fi at the facility. You probably won't need to join the meeting virtually if you're also in person or whatever. But yeah, bring water. There's a water fountain. There are restrooms. There are vending machines. But I would not. If there are things you need, prepare, um, use that scout motto and take care of what you need just in case. Are we not debating resolutions? Oh, there'll be debate. There are so many resolutions. I told you that one document's 145 pages. All total, there have got to be 150, 200 resolutions. If the SEC members decide to debate all 200 of those, actually, we couldn't accommodate debating all 200 because we will get kicked out of the building. Um, but there will be discussion. I do think there are about 500 some people signed up last time I heard. And Melvin, we got you. We will make sure you get the Zoom information and you can do your usual on Zoom on the phone thing. Jim, I see your hand up.
Yeah, maybe I dreamed this, or maybe I was not paying close enough attention, but I read someplace that if you're on Zoom and you wanted to speak, you had to get somebody else to give you the information to somebody else to speak on your behalf. Uh, that's not true. Well, what do we do? Just raise our hand and get And once we get recognized, just talk like I am now.
Question, Jim. So somebody asked earlier how many people are planning on attending the meeting. We're likely going to have over 250 people in person and over 350 people virtually. So when a motion is to be made or something happens and someone wants to provide feedback, a lot of hands shoot up virtually. I'm going to be the staff member on point to acknowledge and help recognize our virtual participants to speak up and unmute themselves and provide feedback during the course of the meeting. There's going to be a queue. So what happens is as hands are raised, I type in the chat the first and last name and order of the members as they will be recognized. In the rules of the day document that Christy was talking about earlier, one of the rules of the day that's listed is that every other person is a virtual participant and every other person is an in-person participant. So 50% of the commentary you'll hear from the floor from members will be from members who are attending virtually, and 50% of the commentary you'll hear from members will be members that are attending in person. We totally empower members to unmute themselves and ask the question and like articulate their thoughts. But if a member is having technical difficulties, we tend to go to the next person in line as they resolve them for the flow of the meeting. You're totally allowed to ask a question, you're totally allowed to unmute yourself, and you're totally allowed to contribute as a virtual member.
What I will say is that, well, let me rephrase that. What I'll ask is the chat in Zoom can get very rapid fire and very messy. So making motions in Zoom or making comments in Zoom aren't always relayed to the floor. So how would people make a motion? I think we ha had people tag you specifically in Zoom.
Yes, so if somebody wants to make a motion in Zoom, we either recommend that they raise their hand or that they type explicitly in the chat, I would like to make a motion. The chat tends to move fast, but I do a pretty good job keeping up with it, and I'll do my best to keep an order in line of who needs to speak on what issue area that we're at. At the SEC meetings, I kind of have a laptop attached to me the entire time.
Okay, we have about 10 more minutes. Do you have other questions? If there aren't other questions, we don't have to hang out here. I will send the follow-up email in the morning. And let me do one thing real quick before we wrap up. Let me just, oops. If you have not been to the SEC meeting page, this is where all of the information lives. So I'm going to drop this in the chat as well. This has been included in the emails that Nye has sent, but everything we talked about here is in here. So we've got meeting logistics here. The member packet will be posted tonight or tomorrow morning. You've got until tonight, tonight to register, order your lunch. This is where you would check who has signed up, the agenda, rules of the day, the AOs, the resolutions, the plan of organization review committee, um, sign up for the in-person or virtual socials. There's a lot of information here. So if you have a question, you will definitely find the answer on that website. I promise it's there. You just might have to click on a couple things to find it. Okay, y'all. We can wrap up. If
Thank
last
you.
name is missing a character, is that okay? I'm not sure, Kathy.
Oh,
I'm not.
I have a middle name misspelled.
You might have made a typo when you were registering. We just copy and paste the information.
Right. So how do we fix that?
We can fix it. Don't worry.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, those are kind of small mismatches. What would be a bigger issue is if like as if I go by Christy, but the name I'm registered under is actually Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Like that would be the kind of mismatch that's harder for us to figure out. A typo, we can make make a judgment call.
Yeah, like a lot of members use their middle name as their first name or their first name as their middle name. Those are the flags we have to know about when we're registering people. Typos like that, we're good to go. And we'll get that sorted out before you have to begin the business of the day.
Thanks.
Well, what if when you ask for the name, our name, I go by D. I don't want people calling me by my given name throughout this whole thing.
Yeah. So we asked during the registration form process that you use the name that is on your voter registration. We'll address you during the meeting by your name of preferred choice, but the system that we use to manage voter data is linked to the Board of Elections. So it has to match whatever name you have for Board of Elections.
Yeah, I registered. So I registered with my name. I did that. I
Okay.
understood that. So, but when I sign in, am I going to have to change?
No, when you sign in, just give them your first, like the first and last name on your voter registration, and then we give name tags, and you can put whatever name you'd like to be addressed on there.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
I see one last question here from Melvin. Is it possible that Zoom will cut off before we're done? No. Nye will have the large license that can handle over 300 people. And because the party has a paid account, it won't cut off. So we should be good there. Gabriel.
Yeah, hey, I registered under my legal name, but I put in the text that I prefer to be known as Gabriel. And I'm assuming it's in the pre-registration. I'm assuming that'll show up in the registration, or maybe not.
Yes, it'll show up in the pre-registration by the name that's on your voter registration, so we can match you, but we'll address you by the name that you ask us to address you with. If you have any issues with registration, we have a virtual help desk and an in-person help desk, and we'll be able to get you sorted and squared away.
Perfect, thank you.
Of course.
All right. See you all on Saturday. Bye.